The planet Krath'al smelled like sulfur and regret. Johari stood on the ceremonial observation platform, watching the sun crawl over jagged mountains, and wondered, not for the first time, how her career counselor had sold this as a growth opportunity. Interspecies observation assignment, the posting had said. Document traditional ceremonies. Nobody mentioned she'd be documenting child abuse with extra steps. Alpha Huntmaster Vex loomed beside her, all 7 feet of scaled muscle and religious conviction. The reptilian male's crest flared with ceremonial colors as he gestured toward the hunting grounds below. The first hunt, Vex intoned with the kind of reverence usually reserved for deities or tax exemptions, is the cornerstone of Krath's strength. For 3,000 cycles our young have proven themselves worthy through the sacred pursuit of prey. Johari looked at the 12 juvenile Krath huddled in the staging area below. They were small, scared, showing every stress behavior she'd learned to recognize during her wildlife rehabilitation training. Repetitive movements, shallow breathing. One cub was rocking back and forth. "Those kids are not ready for this," Johari said carefully. Vex's inner eyelids flickered, irritation. "The young are always ready. The hunt makes them strong. The hunt looks like it's making them have panic attacks. Weakness must be purged through trial." Johari bit back about 15 different responses, most of which involved telling Vex exactly where he could purge his traditions. Instead, she pulled out her documentation tablet and started taking notes. Under observations, she typed, "Subject species has confused strength training with traumatizing children. Recommend immediate intervention and possibly therapy for the adults." "You will witness the glory of Krath tradition," Vex continued, oblivious. "At dawn, I will sound the hunt call. The young will follow me into the proving grounds. They will track, they will hunt, they will kill. Those who succeed earn their place. Those who fail—" He made a dismissive gesture. "What happens to the ones who fail?" "They are reassigned." The way he said it made Johari's stomach turn. "Right," she muttered. "Because nothing says important cultural tradition like forcing traumatized kids to hunt on command." Vex's crest flared brighter. "You mock what you do not understand, human." "I understand terrified children when I see them. I've worked wildlife rescue for 8 years. Those cubs down there, they're not ready for a hunt. They're ready for a nap and maybe some therapy. The hunt is at dawn. You will observe. You will document. You will not interfere." Johari looked at the cubs again. At the smallest one, scraggly, underfed, trembling. "Yeah," she said quietly. "We'll see about that." Dawn arrived with all the subtle grace of a nuclear explosion. Ceremonial drums thundered, horns blared. The observation platforms filled with Krath elders in formal robes, all gathered to witness the sacred tradition of making children hunt while terrified. Vex descended to the staging area, his massive form catching the first rays of sun. The 12 cubs cowered at his approach. Johari watched from her assigned observation post, hands gripping the rail. Vex raised his head and roared. The hunt call was designed to rally the young, to inspire them to follow their alpha into glorious battle. It was a deep, resonating sound that echoed off the mountains and probably violated several noise ordinances. The cubs were supposed to respond with answering calls, to fall into formation behind Vex, to charge into the hunting grounds with eager bloodlust. Instead, they scattered. Some froze in place, too terrified to move. Others bolted in random directions, crying. The smallest one, the scraggly male Johari had noticed earlier, just curled into a ball and started whimpering. Vex roared again. Louder, more aggressive. The cubs got more distressed. "Oh, for the love of—" Johari pulled out her field pack, rummaging for her trail rations. She'd seen enough traumatized animals to know what a stress response looked like. And she'd learned long ago that sometimes the best intervention was just being calm and non-threatening. She unwrapped a protein bar and started eating. Casual, relaxed, making herself a point of stability in the chaos. The scraggly cub's head lifted, his nostrils flared. Food. He took one hesitant step toward Johari, then another. Vex was still roaring, trying to rally his scattered cubs. He hadn't noticed one breaking away. The small cub reached Johari's observation post, looked up at her with huge, terrified eyes. She broke off a piece of the protein bar, held it out. He snatched it and ate like he was starving, which, judging by his visible ribs, he probably was. "Hey, buddy," Johari said softly. "Rough morning, huh?" The cub made a small chirping sound, pressed closer. Other cubs noticed. The food, the calm human, the absence of roaring. One by one, they abandoned Vex's rally call and approached Johari instead. Within 5 minutes, all 12 cubs had surrounded her. Johari's wildlife training kicked in automatically. She assessed each one with practiced efficiency. Malnourished, dehydrated, stress fractures in several tails from repetitive self-harm behaviors. One had a poorly healed bite wound. "What the hell have they been doing to you?" she muttered, pulling out her water supply. The cubs drank desperately. She distributed her rations evenly, making sure the smallest ones got extra. Checked the bite wound, infected, needed cleaning. Made mental notes about which ones seemed most traumatized. The scraggly male climbed onto her shoulders. Johari didn't think anything of it. She'd had plenty of scared animals use her as a safe perch. She just adjusted her balance and kept assessing the others. Below, Vex had finally noticed his entire hunting party had abandoned him for the human observer. His roar this time was pure fury. "You!" He charged up to the observation platform. "You have stolen the cubs from their alpha. This is sacrilege!" Johari looked up, the scraggly cub still perched on her shoulders, 10 others clustered around her legs eating her field rations. "I gave scared kids food and water," she said flatly. "If that's sacrilege, your traditions suck. Return them immediately. Ask them to come back, see what happens." Vex roared the hunt call again. A direct command. The cubs pressed closer to Johari. Several started whimpering. None moved toward Vex. "You have corrupted them!" Vex's crest flared violent crimson. "Turned them against their alpha!" "I gave them snacks. You were screaming at them. I'm just naturally more appealing." The observation platforms had gone silent. Every Krath elder was staring. An ancient female in elaborate robes stood slowly. "Huntmaster Vex, the human has accepted the submission posture." "What?" Johari looked confused. "The smallest cub," the elder continued, "has claimed her shoulders, the submission posture, and she has accepted. He's just sitting on me, he's scared. She has provided food and safety. The cubs have chosen. By our most ancient law." The elder's voice rang across the platforms. "She has claimed alpha status." "I did what now?" Vex's entire body went rigid. "No, impossible. The human is prey. She cannot be alpha." "Yet the cubs have chosen," another elder said. "Look at them. They will not leave her side." Johari looked down at the 12 juvenile Krath clustered around her, the smallest still perched on her shoulders like a scaly parrot. "Okay, time out," she said. "I was just sharing jerky. I didn't claim anything." "The law is clear," the ancient female declared. "She has accepted submission. She has provided for the young. She is alpha to these cubs. Which means," another elder added gravely, "she must lead them on the hunt, or face execution for corrupting the young and defiling tradition." The observation platforms erupted in debate. Johari stood very still, processing what she'd just heard. Led the hunt or die, because she'd given hungry kids food. "You have got to be kidding me," she said. The scraggly cub on her shoulders chirped and nuzzled against her hair. Below, Vex stood in the empty hunting grounds, his roar of challenge echoing unanswered. And Johari realized her simple observation assignment had just become a lot more complicated. All because she couldn't watch scared children go hungry. The galaxy, she decided, had a really screwed-up sense of irony. The elders gathered in a circle around Johari, their ceremonial robes rustling with the weight of 3,000 years of tradition she'd apparently just violated. "The law is absolute," the ancient female elder declared. "You have accepted the submission posture. You are alpha to these young. You must complete the hunt or face execution for corrupting tradition." Johari looked down at Pip, still down at Pip. perched on her shoulders like a scaly security blanket. I was just letting a kid sit on my shoulders. You accepted dominance, another elder intoned. You provided sustenance. You offered protection. The cubs have chosen. Hunt or die, human, a third elder added helpfully. Johari pinched the bridge of her nose. Apparently, I don't want to isn't a valid defense against becoming a religious figure. It is not. She looked at the 12 cubs clustered around her, at their too thin bodies and stress-fractured tails, at the way they flinched whenever Vex moved. Then she looked at Vex, who was practically vibrating with indignation. Fine, Johari said. I'll lead a hunt. My way. The observation platforms erupted in approving roars. Vex stepped forward, crest flaring. The hunt must follow ancient protocols. The young must pursue live prey. They must prove dominance through... Your protocols, Johari interrupted, voice gone cold, are traumatizing children. We're doing this differently, or not at all. This is sacrilege. This is basic decency. Watch and learn. She turned to the 12 cubs, who were watching her with a mix of hope and terror. All right, team, Johari said, dropping into the calm, confident tone she'd used with injured wildlife for years. We're going to do some foraging and tracking exercises. Nobody has to kill anything. Nobody has to fight. We're just going to learn about our environment. Sound good? The cubs looked at each other, then at her. Then, hesitantly, they nodded. Pip chirped agreement from his shoulder perch. Excellent. Let's go. She led them into the hunting grounds while the entire Krath civilization watched in scandalized silence. The hunting grounds were beautiful in a harsh, alien way. Rocky terrain, strange vegetation, the distant calls of creatures Johari couldn't identify. Traditional first hunt, cubs would chase down prey, fight over kills, establish dominance through violence. Johari's hunt, slightly different approach. See these tracks? She pointed to marks in the dust. What made those? The cubs gathered around, curious. One, a slightly larger female, sniffed the tracks. Prey, she said in halting standard. Right. Now, without disturbing anything, can you tell me which direction it went? The cubs studied the tracks, started pointing, arguing quietly among themselves, actually cooperating. Johari showed them how to read depth and spacing, how to estimate size and speed, how to work together instead of competing. When one cub got frustrated and started hyperventilating, classic stress response, she taught them breathing exercises. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, good, you're doing great. Up on the observation ridge, she could hear the elders muttering. She teaches them meditation rituals. The breathing patterns of ancient warriors. Johari ignored them. The cub was calming down. That's what mattered. They found a prey nest. Small burrowing creatures, probably. Herbivores. Traditional hunt. Kill them all. Prove strength through violence. Johari's approach. Let's observe without disturbing them. What can we learn? The cubs watched. Made notes in the dirt. Discussed quietly. One asked, We don't kill? We don't need to kill to prove we're strong, Johari said. We just need to understand our environment. Knowledge is power. Cooperation is strength. Pip nuzzled her ear in agreement. From his observation post, Vex's roar echoed across the grounds. This is not the hunt. This is learning, Johari called back without looking. Yeah, crazy concept, right? The cubs were thriving, sharing discoveries, helping each other climb difficult terrain, working as a team instead of competing for dominance. No violence, no trauma, just education and cooperation. Exactly what traumatized kids needed. After 3 hours, Johari led them back to the ceremonial grounds. Traditional first hunt return. Cubs covered in blood. One dominant cub leading, others submissive and defeated. Johari's hunt return. 12 cubs walking together, helping each other, chattering excitedly about their discoveries. The elders stared in stunned silence. The cubs presented their findings as a group. Track patterns they'd identified. Plant species they'd cataloged. Behavioral observations of prey animals. They'd even sketched a rough map of the terrain. No dominance hierarchy, no violence, no blood. Just cooperation and knowledge. The ancient female elder leaned forward. This is not the hunt. We hunted knowledge, Johari said calmly. We found it. Hunt complete. Vex pushed through the crowd, scales flushed with rage. Where is the kill? Where is the blood? Where is the hunt? We observed a prey nest, learned their patterns, returned with information. Johari shrugged. That's hunting. Just smarter. You have made them weak. I've made them competent. There's a difference. The cubs clustered around Johari, confident and calm. Pip still on her shoulders. No signs of trauma, no stress behaviors. Complete opposite of the terrified Rex she'd seen at dawn. The elders conferred in rapid clicking speech. Johari caught words like unprecedented and revolutionary, and complete violation of everything sacred. Finally, the ancient female stood. The human has completed a hunt, she declared. Unconventional, disturbing, but successful. Successful, Vex sputtered. She taught them to observe instead of kill. And they returned unharmed, knowledgeable, and unified. The elders' gaze swept the observation platforms. For the first time in recorded history, all cubs survived the first hunt without injury. Silence. This is the new way, another elder announced. The human will stay. She will train all Krath'al in her methods. Absolutely not, Vex roared. Wait, what? Johari said. You will remain on Krath'al. You will teach our young. You will... I'm a wildlife specialist, not a teacher. You are Alpha. The young have chosen. You will stay. Johari opened her mouth to argue. Then she looked at the 12 cubs around her, at Pip, trusting and safe on her shoulders, at their calm, confident postures. How long? She asked carefully. Until all young are trained in the new way. That could be years. Yes. And if I refuse? Execution for corrupting tradition. Right. So stay and teach or die. Great options. The ancient female's expression softened slightly. You care for them. We see this. It is why they chose you. Johari sighed, looked at the cubs, thought about what she'd seen that morning. The terror, the stress behaviors, the poor nutrition. Fine. But I need to know something first. She fixed the elders with a hard stare. Why are these cubs so traumatized? This isn't normal stress. This is serious psychological damage. The elders shifted uncomfortably. The first hunt is difficult, one began. The first hunt doesn't cause bite wounds and stress fractures. What aren't you telling me? Long silence. Finally, the ancient female spoke, her voice heavy. They are war orphans. Johari went very still. What? We are at war. Have been for 12 cycles. These young... Their parents died in combat. They were taken into the training program. Prepared for... For what? The elder looked away. For military service. They are being conditioned as soldiers. The pieces clicked into place. The trauma. The aggression training. The hunt that was really combat preparation. You're training child soldiers, Johari said quietly, dangerously. We are desperate. Our enemies are... You're traumatizing orphans to turn them into weapons. The cubs pressed closer to Johari, sensing her anger. Pip made a small, worried sound. Vex stepped forward. We do what we must to survive. Weakness gets you killed. We make them strong. Johari looked at him, at the elders, at the entire civilization that thought breaking children was acceptable. You're not making them strong, she said. You're making them broken. She touched Pip gently, looked at each of the 12 cubs. And that ends now. The observation platforms erupted in chaos, but Johari had made her decision. If she was stuck here, she was going to fix this. All of it. Starting with ending the systematic abuse disguised as tradition. The hunt had begun at dawn. But now, a different kind of revolution was starting. and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave a wildlife rehabilitation specialist 12 traumatized kids and told her to make them into warriors. Spoiler, she was going to make them into healthy, functional individuals instead, whether the Krath liked it or not. The ancient female elder's composure cracked. Her ceremonial robes seemed to weigh heavier as she settled onto a stone bench, suddenly looking every one of her 100+ cycles. "We are losing the war," she said quietly. "Have been for 12 cycles. Our enemies push closer each season. We need soldiers, warriors. We need—" She gestured helplessly at the cubs. "We need them to be ready." "Ready." Johari's voice was dangerously calm. "They're 4 to 6 years old. In Krath years, they are old enough to— They're children." The words echoed across the observation platforms. "You're traumatizing kids to make weapons out of them." Another elder stepped forward, scales dulled with age and exhaustion. "We are desperate, human. Our enemies are strong, numerous, relentless. We need warriors, not students." "You need therapy!" Johari gestured at the 12 cubs pressed against her. "These kids have PTSD, malnutrition, stress injuries. You're not making warriors, you're making damaged survivors." Vex's tail lashed. "Weakness gets you killed in war. We make them strong enough to survive." "You're making them broken," Johari's voice cracked. "There's a difference between strong and traumatized, Vex." She looked at Pip, still clinging to her shoulders, at the visible ribs on most of the cubs, at the way they flinched at loud noises. "The sacred tradition is just military recruitment with extra steps," she said bitterly. "How long has this been going on?" "The war started 12 cycles ago," the ancient female admitted. "The first hunt was always challenging, but we adapted it, made it harsher, more focused on combat skills. You needed to stop breaking children and start actually preparing them." Johari sat down heavily. "This is insane. This is survival. This is child abuse with a ceremonial coding." The observation platforms descended into argument. Some elders defended the system. Others looked uncomfortable, maybe seeing it clearly for the first time through an outsider's eyes. Johari just held the cubs close and tried not to scream. Word spread fast. Within 3 days, other Krath parents started arriving at the ceremonial grounds, not for traditional hunts, for Johari. "Please," a scarred female warrior begged, her 2 cubs hiding behind her legs. "Train them your way. The new way. I can't watch them break like I did." Johari tried to refuse. "I'm a wildlife specialist, not a drill instructor. You saved 12 cubs in 1 day. I gave them food and didn't yell at them. That's not special." "To them it is." The warrior gently pushed her cubs forward. "Please." More parents came. More traumatized cubs. All of them desperate for something different than the brutal conditioning that passed for education. Pip refused to leave Johari's side, which meant the other original 12 stayed close too. They became her assistants by default, showing new cubs that it was safe, that this strange human wouldn't hurt them. Johari found herself running what amounted to a trauma recovery program disguised as military training. She taught breathing exercises and called them warrior meditation techniques. Cooperative play became tactical coordination drills. Emotional regulation was combat-focused training. The cubs didn't care what she called it. They just cared that for the first time in their lives, adults weren't hurting them in the name of making them stronger. They thrived. Within 2 weeks, Johari had 40 cubs. Within a month, over 100. Parents watched their children laugh during training, saw them cooperate instead of compete, noticed the stress behaviors fading. Some elders called it revolutionary. Others called it heresy. Vex called it weakness. And he'd had enough. The challenge came at dawn. Vex strode into the training grounds where Johari was teaching a group of cubs about environmental awareness. His crest flared in full ceremonial challenge colors. "I invoke alpha combat!" His roar silenced everything. "Traditional challenge. The human has poisoned our young with weakness. I reclaim my position." The cubs scattered except for the original 12, who immediately clustered around Johari. She stood slowly, Pip climbing to his usual shoulder perch. "I'm not fighting you, you overgrown lizard." "Then you forfeit." Vex's eyes gleamed. The cubs returned to traditional training. All of them. The reaction was immediate. Pip started crying. Small, broken sounds that cut through the morning air. The other cubs followed, pressing desperately against Johari, some of them beginning to hyperventilate with panic. The 100+ cubs on the training grounds went silent, watching. Terrified. "Look at them!" Johari's voice shook. "Look, they're terrified of you. As they should be. I am their alpha. I am strong. You're supposed to be safe." The words echoed across the grounds. "These kids don't need a warrior. They need someone who won't hurt them. War will hurt them. Enemies will hurt them. I prepare them for reality." "You're preparing them for trauma." Johari knelt down, eye level with the sobbing cubs. Her voice softened. "Hey, look at me. Do you want to go back to the old way?" All 12 shook their heads violently. Pip clung tighter. "Do you want to keep learning the way we've been doing?" Nods. Desperate, pleading nods. Johari stood, faced Vex. "They've chosen. You want to challenge me? Fine. But you're not taking these kids back into that nightmare." Vex stepped forward, claws extended. "You are prey. You cannot defeat me in combat. Then fight me, and prove you're a bully who hurts those weaker than you." Johari's voice was ice. "That'll really show these kids what strength looks like." Vex froze. Around the training grounds, 100 cubs watched. Watched their legendary Huntmaster, their greatest warrior, their alpha. Watched him prepare to fight someone smaller, weaker, who'd never hurt anyone. The silence stretched. Then Vex looked at the cubs, really looked at them, at their terrified faces, at the way they pressed against Johari like she was the only safe thing in the world, at how they looked at him, not with respect or admiration, with fear. The same fear he'd felt as a cub, when the adults had screamed at him, hit him, called it training, called it strength. He'd thought that was normal, thought that was what made warriors. But looking at these cubs now, seeing their trust in the human versus their terror of him. Vex's voice cracked. His crest dimmed. I was trained the same way." Johari's expression softened slightly. "I know. They told me it made me strong, that the pain, the fear, the hunger, it was necessary. It wasn't. I believed them." Vex's massive frame seemed to shrink. I thought I was helping these cubs, preparing them, making them strong like I am strong." "You're not strong, Vex." Johari's voice was gentle now. "You're surviving. There's a difference." He looked at her. Then at the cubs. At Pip, still crying softly on her shoulder. "What was done to you was abuse," Johari said quietly. "Not training. Abuse. And you've been perpetuating it because you didn't know anything else." Vex's legs folded. The great Huntmaster collapsed to the ground, and a sound emerged from his throat, raw, broken. He was crying. The cubs stared. They'd never seen an adult Krath cry. Johari approached slowly, sat beside him. "I didn't know," Vex whispered. "I thought I was doing right by them. Now you know better." She put a hand on his scaled forearm. "So now you can do better. I don't know how. That's why I'm here, to teach." She looked at the cubs watching from a distance. "Not just them. Everyone who needs it, including you." Vex looked at her, this small human who'd overturned everything he'd believed in less than a month. "Will they ever trust me?" he asked. Johari glanced at the original 12, at Pip, who'd stopped crying and was watching Vex with cautious curiosity. "Trust is earned," she said. "But you can start earning it now, by learning alongside them, by showing them that adults can change, can admit when they're wrong." Vex was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Teach me," he said. "Teach me the new way." Around the training grounds, 100 cubs watched their fearsome Huntmaster kneel before a human and ask to learn gentleness. And Johari, wildlife specialist turned accidental revolutionary, looked at the broken warrior and the traumatized children, and the entire civilization built on pain, disguised as strength. "All right," she said. "Class is in session. First lesson. Healing starts when you stop pretending the hurt was helpful." Vex lowered his head, and somewhere in the background, Pip chirped softly. The hunt had begun at dawn. But what was being hunted now wasn't prey. It was healing. And that, Johari was learning, was the hardest and most important hunt of all. 6 months changed everything. Johari stood in what had been the ceremonial hunting grounds, and was now something closer to a rehabilitation center. Cubs scattered across the space, some practicing tracking, some doing cooperative exercises, some just playing because they'd finally learned that play was allowed. Vex approached with a data pad, his movements less aggressive than they'd been. Softer. "Morning report," he said quietly. 234 cubs currently enrolled. 15 new arrivals this week. 3 more settlements have requested we establish satellite programs. "How are you doing with the calming protocols?" Johari asked, watching a small cub struggling with anxiety nearby. Vex's crest dimmed. Embarrassment. "I attempted to comfort young Kess yesterday when she had a stress episode." "And?" "She cried harder. I don't know what I did wrong." "Did you stay with her anyway?" "Yes. Until she calmed." "Then you did it right. Healing isn't instant, Vex. You're learning." He was quiet for a moment. "I was a war orphan, too. Did you know that?" Johari had suspected. "I wondered. They trained me the same way. Thought pain equaled strength. Thought fear made warriors." His voice cracked slightly. "I never knew another way." "It doesn't," Johari said gently. "Pain equals pain. Strength comes from support, not suffering. I'm trying to understand that." Vex looked at the cubs playing. "This is what I could have been. Should have been. It's what you can still become. Healing isn't just for kids." The original 12 cubs had become assistant trainers. Pip, no longer scrawny, now healthy and confident, was demonstrating breathing techniques to a group of new arrivals. The smallest cub who'd climbed on Johari's shoulders that first dawn was now teaching others the same coping skills she'd taught him. The war continued, but fewer children were being fed into it. A galactic news crew had arrived last week, documenting the revolutionary Krath reformation. "Your methods have reduced combat effectiveness by 40%, the reporter had declared, like it was an accusation. Johari had looked directly into the camera. "Good. Maybe they'll negotiate instead of throwing traumatized children at the problem." The elders still argued about whether this was progress or heresy. Johari had stopped caring which. Dawn arrived with familiar ceremony but different substance. A new group of cubs stood at the edge of the hunting grounds. First hunt day. But this time, no terror. No stress fractures. No malnourishment. Just nervous excitement. Johari stood before them, Pip perched on his usual shoulder spot. "All right, team. Today we track, observe, and learn. Nobody has to kill anything. Nobody has to prove dominance. We work together, we share discoveries, and we come back with knowledge. Sound good?" The cubs nodded eagerly. Vex stood beside her, no longer challenging, but supporting. He'd learned to be gentle with corrections, patient with questions. Watch the cubs with something that might have been hope. The hunt was different now. Cubs returned together, helping each other, excited about what they'd learned. They presented findings as a group, tracks identified, plants cataloged, prey behavior observed without disturbing. No blood, no violence, no trauma, just education and cooperation. Pip led his group with quiet confidence, the smallest cub who'd become a leader not through dominance, but through showing others what safety felt like. As the cubs presented their findings to the gathered elders, Vex leaned close to Johari. "This is what I could have been," he said quietly, watching them. "It's what you're becoming," Johari replied. "Every day you choose this over the old way, you heal a little more." His crest flickered with colors she'd learned meant gratitude. That evening, Johari recorded her final mission report. She set up her recorder in the training grounds, cubs visible in the background finishing their day. Pip dozed on her shoulders, a warm weight she'd grown accustomed to. "Hey, Earth Command. Final report from Krath'al." She smiled tiredly at the camera. "So, update. I accidentally reformed an entire planet's child-rearing practices by refusing to let kids be traumatized." In the background, hundreds of cubs practiced cooperation exercises. Vex awkwardly comforted a crying youngster, his massive claws gentle now. "The Krath are calling it the human way. I call it not being a monster to children." She scratched Pip's chin absently. "Turns out that when you stop traumatizing war orphans and actually care for them, they thrive. Revolutionary concept, apparently." A small cub brought her a flower, one of the enrichment activities she'd introduced. She accepted it with genuine warmth. "They're sending me to 3 more planets with similar traditions, because apparently not abusing kids is so revolutionary it requires an interspecies specialist." She shook her head. "I'm a wildlife rehabilitator. I just treated traumatized children like they deserved care instead of conditioning. Somehow that changed a civilization." She looked at Pip, at the thriving cubs, at Vex learning to be gentle after decades of only knowing violence. The hunt began at dawn, but the predator cubs didn't follow the alpha's call for violence. They followed the human who offered safety instead. Johari paused, choosing her final words carefully. "The galaxy's still trying to figure out if I conquered Krath or just taught them basic decency. Honestly, I just wanted the kids to stop having panic attacks. I wanted them to eat properly, to sleep without nightmares, to learn cooperation instead of combat." She touched Pip gently, felt his steady breathing. Turns out that was revolutionary enough. Funny how the bar for changing the galaxy is just be kind to children. In the background, a group of cubs laughed during play. Vex smiled, actually smiled, watching them. "Mission complete, sort of. Except now I have 3 more planets to visit, and I suspect this is going to be my career for a while. Reforming civilizations one traumatized cub at a time." She looked directly at the camera. "If that's what conquering looks like, the galaxy's standards are pretty low. I'm just doing what anyone should do, refusing to participate in systems that break children." Johari ended the recording. Around her, the training grounds settled into evening calm. Cubs heading to their sleeping areas, comfortable now, not cages. Vex doing final rounds, checking on the young with newfound gentleness. And Pip, still on her shoulders, chirping softly in contentment. The hunt had begun at dawn. But what they'd caught wasn't prey. It was hope. And that, Johari decided, was worth more than any traditional kill. The predator cubs had chosen their alpha. Not the strongest, not the most feared, just the safest. And somehow, that changed everything.